Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to AccidentalMuslims.com. And this evening we have a very special guest from all the way from Egypt, but also locally born, in fact, from Cape Town. Wasfeeya Altalib, thank you for joining us.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
And Amir, my co-host.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Okay, so let's get straight into it. Who is Wasfeeya?
Sure. So I'm currently a Quran teacher, online Quran teacher and Hifz mentor. I was born in Johannesburg and moved to here. So I'm from Cape Town, very proudly so, but it just so happened that I was born in Johannesburg. My family was living there at the time. Moved back to Cape Town. My younger brother was born in Cape Town, and then we moved to Malawi before my youngest brother turned a year old. Lived there for about 10 or 12 years of my life. 12 years actually. 10 years. I moved back on my 12th birthday. My sister always says there's always something happening on my birthday. But anyway, so I grew up in a rural kind of more area called Zomba in Malawi. It's known as the warm heart of Africa. It really is the warm heart of Africa. We moved back Cape Town on the brink of my high school career. And then I completed my high school here in Cape Town at Santusi Girls High School, which at the time, alhamdulillah, was a good school. The level of education was really good. I got to, participate in lots of extramural activities and culture on all fronts. So I always was a well-rounded person. I did well academically, was involved in cultural activities like debating and then Muslim Students Association and then sports as well. So I did swimming and hockey, and so I really always believed in being a well-rounded person.
So I just want to go back to Malawi. How long were you in Malawi?
About 10 years.
15 years.
10 years.
13.
Yeah. So I was two. I think I was two when I moved there, and then we moved back on my 12th birthday. So that's 10 years. Yeah.
And growing up in Malawi, and do you remember?
I do remember growing up in Malawi. I think I'm very blessed to live there because I, unlike the children here today in Cape Town, I lived a very safe and free childhood, running bare feet and climbing trees and riding bikes and getting to know kids from all over the world because I went to an international primary school over there. So there were children from all over because they were expatriates. They were working on a dam that was being built there at that point in time.
How would you compare the Islamic culture between Cape Town and Malawi?
So in Malawi at the time, it was the Muslim community was mostly made up of Indian people. So there's a lot of Indian business people over there. That was their main purpose for being in Malawi from their forefathers until now. Whereas I'm not Indian, I'm not part of that community. So I was never really part of a Muslim community there. In fact, my mother didn't want me to even go to the madrasa there because, they taught in Urdu perhaps, or they had their own way of doing things like hitting the children. And my mom was like, she didn't want that for us. So we had a Malawian teacher come to the house and teach us the surah and teach us how to recite. So I wouldn't say we were part of a Muslim community there at all. We were actually friends with Christian missionaries. Like our best friends were Christian missionaries. So my father's there busy doing dawah work and her father's there busy doing missionary work, converting people to Christianity, but yet we were best friends.
Let's go back to school. Like, what school did you go to? Tell us about your school. How?
In the primary school in Cape Town, sure. So coming back to Cape Town was a bit of a culture shock for me because I came from a background that was quite pure in the sense that we weren't exposed to things like drugs and sort of dating and things to the extent that kids here were up to. So, and I didn't want to act like I didn't know what these people were talking about, so I just kept quiet and kind of learned from my peers like what they were actually talking about, and obviously eventually figured out like, oh my word, like that's what kids are doing. Eventually just integrated into the whole Cape Town society and high school life. I think I was just very average Muslim teenager growing up, wasn't practicing really. Being part of Muslim Students Association is like, oh wow, like really just because you're like the president of the Muslim Students Association. But really it was, I'd call myself an accidental Muslim, so that's why I really love the name of the platform too.
So you president of the MSA?
Yes, so when I was in high school,
Okay.
I was became quite actively involved in the Muslim Students Association, and then so there was a girl who was Hafidha, and so what was good about that was she was connected to other Hafidhat. So she would ask them to come into school and just like speak to the girls during break time, because that's when we would have our meetings. And then one meeting, she invited Hafidha Radiabawa to come and speak to us, because the previous president, so when I was in grade 11, my friend was the president, the chairperson of the Muslim Students Association. And because she had studied under the late Sheikh Yusuf Puli, she knew the other Hafidhat who also studied under the late Sheikh Yusuf Puli, whereas there would be no way that I would have any contact with them at all, because I mean I'm in a different world at that point in time. So then when I became president of the Muslim Students Association, I kind of continued that, asked her for the contacts to get the guest speakers to come in to speak to the girls and so forth. So then one of the guest speakers that did come in was Hafidha Radiabawa, and she at that point was just going to start her own institute the following year. And then I decided to attend her institute, which was known as Darul Naim Zuhur at the time, which is now known as Zahra Institute. So that's really how I started or became, my journey to becoming a Muslim, I would say, in the true essence of the word, started.
So you in grade 11 or grade 12, did you have sort of this pressure of choosing a career out of school?
Definitely there is that pressure, because everyone, your school is like saying, you need to do well because you need to get into university firstly, and then pursue a career that's going to earn you, a salary, and you have this vision of like working in this office and dressing a certain way and having a certain car and having a certain lifestyle. So I definitely had that image of or that vision for myself as well. So I wanted to, and I was doing well academically as well, so for me going to Zahra Institute was just like a gap year. So the thing is, because I went to school in Malawi, and I did the British system there, I started grade 1 at the age of 5 years old, whereas in Cape Town people start school at the age of 7 years old. I think that for me it was such an advantage to start grade 1 at such a young age, because then I could matriculate at a younger age. I was just about 17 years old when I matriculated. So I'm like, okay, well, if I take a year off of my life, I'm not even going to be behind anyone else, because I'll still be 18 by the time I start university, so that really was my thinking behind it. I did, so when people did start going to university, there was a little bit of that, okay, everyone's in university and I'm not, but I knew I was going to go there anyway. And I don't think I'm not one to follow the crowd, and I was strong enough in my own self to do something different to what everyone else was doing. And that's what I did. So initially when I started, I did keep in contact with like a few of my friends, but slowly as I transformed and went on this journey, I stopped being friends with those friends anymore, because now I've changed, I'm a different person, I'm on my own journey and they on theirs.
So out of everything that you could have done during a gap year, you decided to go to the Zahra Institute. Why did you choose that?
So when I was in grade 11, the first person that introduced this idea of Darul Naim was Fadwa Solomon. So she also was a student of the late Sheikh Yusuf Puli, and then she told us about Darul Naim, and I think it was just something she said that just maybe clicked with me at that point in time. And she says that the Quran is like a prescription, and you're not going to get better by just reading it. So with a doctor's prescription, you're not going to get better by just reading it. You actually have to go and to get the medicine, actually take the medicine, and then you'll get better. So the same thing with the Quran, like you're not going to get better by just reading it. Like you actually have to know what it says. You actually have to understand it. So I think that is what clicked with me, because I don't remember much. I don't have the best of memories, but if I remembered that, then it must have been something that clicked within me, made sense to me, and I was like, yes, I'm Muslim, but like I don't know what the Quran says. I'm going to go to university. What if people ask me about the Quran or my religion? What am I going to say to these people? Like, how am I going to answer them? And I think that was also a little bit of a push for me to study the Quran, because I'm like, I don't want to look stupid. People's asking me about my religion, I'm not able to answer them. So that was, she kind of planted that seed in grade 11. And then, of course, when Matric came, and then I now invited Hafiz Radhi Bawa, and she was starting her own institute, and her institute was simply closer to where I live than the one in Wynberg. So I was like, okay, well, it's the same institute, it's a sister institute, I'll go to her one rather because it's closer to home, right?
Okay.
But hers was really the one Allah chose for me because it was all female environment. She was really the role model that I needed at that point in time, because remember, I'm 17 years old. That's the age where Erikson speaks of it as the stage of identity versus role confusion. So it's a point in your life that, the teenage years where you're kind of figuring out who you are and where you're at, and so it was really the perfect time in my life where it molded who I was as a person, and it really solidified my identity as a Muslim.
Tell me about, so how long is this course at Sahra Institute?
So it's just a year-long
So
course, but we
and-
cover the whole Quran from cover to
wow.
cover. Yeah, so it's really a phenomenal thing.
And then what happened after that year?
So after that year, I did go to university,
Okay.
to UCT, and I started with a BCom degree. However, I think the idea of it was different. My idea of it was different to how it actually was, and I was not happy doing that. So I was like, okay. So then I was now looking at what else, changing direction, because I said to myself, I'm not going to sit through a 4-year or 3-year degree and hating what I'm doing, and maybe other people do that and that's fine for them, and then they end up doing something else afterwards anyway, but I'm not going to do that. And I remember a friend commenting like, oh, you're wasting all the money that was spent for that semester, and it is a lot of money. But I was like, I'll rather change now than go through something that I'm not happy doing. And alhamdulillah, again, like I had a strong enough sense of myself to make that decision and to not look back and to not regret that. So I don't regret leaving. So I left after 1 semester, and I started memorizing the Quran, and I completed that, alhamdulillah. And after that, alhamdulillah, since then I've just always been on the path of seeking being a student of deen and teaching and so forth.
So I just want to go back to the BCom. So, like, what was your expectation
Yeah.
in university and choosing the BCom degree? I just want to marry the
So,
expectation versus
Versus
Sure.
what you experienced.
So for me, I think it was the pursuit of the lifestyle that would come afterwards, or what I thought would come after. It's more like, okay, you've got this certification now, so now you can get a job at like a company and earn like a decent salary and work your way up the corporate ladder. I think I just saw it as the key to doing that. I didn't take into consideration the fact that you actually have to, study the economics. That didn't make sense to me. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so and then listen about your Quran. How long did it take for you to complete the Quran?
So about 4 years in total. So I started already while I was at Zahra Institute. I did it part-time, and then even while I was at university as well. So like while other people were just like, chilling in the cafe or whatever, I would go to the JK and just memorize. And then, so initially I wanted to change over to religious studies at UCT, so I'd still be there and still be doing a degree, but just something different. But then one of our family friends said to me, she was like, you know what, if you really want to do Islamic studies, don't do it at UCT. Like, go overseas where you can just pursue authentic Islamic studies or sacred knowledge. So I did look at options overseas. So I looked at the Princess Noura University in Saudi Arabia. I looked at I think it is the Darul Zahra in Tarim in Yemen, and then I might have looked at other places online. However, those doors just weren't open to me at that point in time. So the academic year was different to hours, and it wasn't just the time wasn't there. So I thought, okay, you know what, let me just pursue my HIF until the end of the year, until the application's now open and I can actually apply and so forth. So the HIF wasn't meant to be a full-time thing. It was just meant to be up until I can now go overseas and do the Islamic studies that I wanted to do. However, my Quran teacher at the time, Mahira Abdul Razak, she said to me, well, you know what, if you want to actually pursue Islamic knowledge, the Quran is the source of all of that, so why don't you just finish your Quran first and then go on to do Islamic studies? So I thought about it and I was like, okay, I'll see how I feel at the end of the year. So I did that, and then I decided to complete my HIF first, and then the next year I did go to the year after I completed my hifz, I went to Darul Naim in Weinberg, where I did do second year of the Islamic studies program. So I did subjects like Aqidah and Fiqh and Hadith and so forth.
So talking about Quran, I'll ask you a very difficult question. What is one of your favorite Quranic verses or stories?
I think there are a lot, but one of them is about marriage in the Quran, where it's a story of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, where the girl, so he's now thrown out of his city, and he now goes to he flees, and then he comes across he goes to Madian, and then he comes across these girls at the water well, and then the girls are now waiting for the other shepherds to go by so that they can get the water, and then he goes up to them and he asks them what's going on, and he helps them, and then they go back to their father, and they tell their father about Nabi Musa alayhi salam. And in that time, Nabi Musa alayhi salam makes this dua that, oh, I'm in need of whatever good you send down upon me. And then the girl comes back and she calls him and says, my father wants to reward you for the good that you've done. And he goes to their house, and their father tells him that, I'd like to offer one of my daughters to you in marriage. And he, of course, marries her, and he gets a place to stay, he gets employment and accommodation and everything. And for me, that's like really one of the most beautiful stories. And also the part of it that I like the most is the fact that like the girl kind of did the proposing, because she said to her father, you know what, I like this guy, and I'd like you to meet him, and I'd like us to propose to him. And I think that's so different to what our society is today, where it's kind of like, oh, the man has to be the one to pursue the woman, and actually the only marriage story in the Quran is where the girl actually says. So it just really breaks our stereotypes that we have today.
Are you perhaps married?
I am married, very happily married, alhamdulillah. So, what would you like to know about me?
No, earlier on we were speaking about, or you told us that you have a blog. So tell us a bit about that.
I do. So, I'm very passionate about young people getting married, but not just getting married. I am passionate about them getting married the right way, which is in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I believe that it's something that is possible and that can be done. And I think what was instrumental for me is seeing other examples of that, and me wanting to be an example as well to other people. So with my marriage, what happened was my husband had seen my video on YouTube of when I completed my memorization of the Quran. So I didn't know that, and he saw in this video a mutual friend of ours, and he had contacted her to say that he's interested in me, and she told him that I'm not available, and a while later he asked again, about a year later or so, and then she told him like, I'm not available, and like even after that he asked again, and he said, okay, she said I'm not available, and he was like, okay, cool, whatever. Like life went on. He thought like, okay, it's just not meant to be. And then my friend asks me at the wedding, this is in the middle of 2017, she's like, okay, so like when are you getting married? And I say, oh no, alhamdulillah, like I'm not getting married anymore. So she's like, oh, so why didn't you tell me, like this guy's been asking about you? So she tells me this guy's name, and I go look him up on Facebook. I'm like, is this the guy? She's like, yes, that's the guy. And I'm just like, yeah, it's what my husband doesn't like about the story, but I was not interested.
I want to go back. So why was your friend saying you're not available?
So I was at the time already considering somebody else. I wasn't available in that respect, but she of course didn't bother telling me, about this guy, because I, there wouldn't have been a point in that. But now that she knew that I'm like single, she's like, okay, she tells me this guy, and I'm like, and I tell her I'm not interested, but then I tell her, you know what, here's my email address, and here's my brother's email address as well, so you can be CC'd in the emails as my mahram or the third person. And we'll, because I said you never know, but I was so convinced that like this was not going to work out. But I really believe in you never know. So I always tell people, like, meet people even if you think it's not going to work out, because you just never know. So he emails me, and then my brother reads the email before I do. So we're out at my father's birthday one evening, mid-July 2017. And then my brother says, oh, this guy has emailed and he's interested in Wasfeeya. He decides to not tell the whole family before I even read the email. Yeah. So we're now talking about this guy, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I'm really like interested, but we'll see, whatever. And then so I come home, of course, very excited to just like sit and just like read the email and whatever. And as soon as I read the email, the way he started the email, it was like this most beautiful salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and just like the way he presented himself. And I just like knew in that moment, I was like, okay, like wow, like I'm blown away, like really, just because he had a sense of like who he is and what he's doing and why he's in Egypt. And I was like, okay, cool, like I know who I am and where I'm going, and why I'm doing what I'm doing, so my vision is in line with your vision, so this could work out. And so we emailed back and forth, and then like I said, quite quickly I knew like, okay, this is it. And then of course we had to wait until a few months later for him to actually come down, for us to now meet in person. And then we met, alhamdulillah, in end of November 2017, and then we got engaged and got married 2 months later.
Wow, beautiful
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
She got married.
So we started a blog before we got married, just sharing like our experience of like, he was a lot more keen to share, to do the blog posts before we got married, you know, and after we got married, he kind of was became a bit lazy about it, and I was like, okay, if you're not going to post, I'm not going to post either. But anyway, so we posted about just like our feelings and our experiences and like questions to ask and those kind of stuff on the blog. Yeah.
Cool.
So, tell us about success. What does success mean to you? You've been on this journey now.
Yeah.
obviously. So tell us about success.
Sure. Success to me really is being content with all this degree. Yeah.
What are you currently doing?
So I'm currently a online Quran teacher and Hifz mentor. So because I, of course, alhamdulillah, have completed the memorization of the Quran, I do teach people from scratch or wherever they are in their memorization journey. So I have students all over, mostly in some in South Africa, in the UK, Canada, and US. And then the Hifz mentoring is so I did a life coaching course last year, and then I decided to just focus on Hifz coaching, so that it's more Hifz mentoring than coaching, simply because I've not been through the journey and the pitfalls and those kind of stuff. So the idea is to help other females who are on their Quran journey as well, when they need assistance with whether it's their time management or just the breaking up of the back lessons, or you know, whatever it is that they're facing that I can maybe help with. Yeah.
Online Hifz teacher. What does it mean to be an online teacher?
So I don't teach people in person. So when I was in Cape Town, I had students who come to the house, and I didn't go to students' houses. So one of Imam Nawawi says that it is not, he says that it is not appropriate for the teacher of knowledge to go to the student, but rather the student should go to the teacher. So that's why I just taught from home. So now, obviously, because that's not an option if people's living on the other side of the world, we live in a virtual world, alhamdulillah, and I'm grateful to live in a time that we live in a virtual world. So it's cool to video call they video call me. So even so then I make the students call me, so in the sense that, so even though they can't come to me, they should be the one to like call me, so that at a certain time they know, okay, they need to call me, and then they'll phone, and then we will video call, and then do their lesson. And yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
well, it's kind of like online life coaching that you get nowadays, online counseling. Yes, so I use either WhatsApp call or IMO call or Skype call, depending on whichever works best. Yeah.
okay.
So where did this idea come about?
Okay, so I had done an online Quran memorization course, and in this course there was another student from Joburg, and then the facilitator messaged me to ask me if I could take her on, because she actually joined the memorization course because she thought it was like actual teaching, but it wasn't. The course was more about methods and kind of mindset and that kind of stuff, and she was like, oh, she actually joined it. she probably didn't read what it was about. She just saw, okay, on like Quran memorization course, she's going to do this. And then, so the facilitator messaged me and asked, can you take on the student? She's in South Africa and you in South Africa. So, so then I took her on. So she's still in Johannesburg and I was in Cape Town. So we just do it over the phone, over the landline. So we initially did it over Skype, so video call initially. But then I think we were having some challenges with the internet. So then we went over the landline. And that's like super clear, still clear because, it's the landline, but we're both in the same country. And then when I moved to Cairo, we continued still. And then I just put it out there that, to get other students as well.
So before we go to Cairo and Egypt, I don't want to miss this. Just back on marriage, do you have any tips for like single brothers and sisters that watching and can listen to the podcast, listening to the podcast, in terms of finding the potential spouse? Do you have any advice?
I always say to young people who would like to get married that you have to be involved in your community. So whether that be your MSA, whether that be community service in whatever way, shape or form, not for the intention to get married, but rather sincerely for the sake of wanting to help out. And why I say that is because, how are other people going to see you and recommend you to other people if they don't know who you are? So, I always thought I'd get married through the MSA because I was like so actively involved in MSA and that kind of thing. But many youth have also gotten married through the MSA. So that's one aspect I would say. But before that, I think that your intention should be to get married in the obedience of Allah, because what happens is that Shaitan will beautify your relationship before you get married, and then as soon as you get married, Shaitan flees away, and now you're sitting with issues and problems and all of that. So the intention from the beginning must be, I want to get married in the obedience of Allah and have Allah's blessings and guide that. So of course, from your side, apart from making dua, it's being involved in the communities, telling your friends as well and your family members, because often that's also another way where people recommend, where they say, oh, they know this person, or through mutual friends or through mutual family. So that's another way. It's important to not be shy about and be like, yes, I am getting married. So I'd like to get married. So like for myself as well, like long before I got married, I had this album on Facebook called Dear Future Husband, and yes, and I'd always post on there, and so I wasn't shy to about the fact that I wanted to get married, and when I come across quotes about marriage and stuff, I'd post it on there. And I didn't realize the power in that. It was only last year when I did my life coaching course, the coach facilitator actually told me, he'd obviously come across it, and he was like, there's so much power in your story. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't even realize, for me it was just posting on Facebook, I didn't even realize, that was me putting it out there, not being shy about the fact that I'd want to get married. It's nothing to be shy or embarrassed about. I wanted to get married for a long time, So I think that's the thing. Don't be shy to say that you want to get married. It's a respectful thing. It's not something bad or something to be shy or embarrassed about. And then also it's knowing what you want in a partner. There are two ends of the spectrum, so don't be overly specific or overly picky. And on the other end of the spectrum also, don't be too anybody's good enough. You kind of do need to have a good sense of who you are and what it is that you are looking for. And then from that space, be open to meeting people, even if, like I said, even if they don't seem to be your type, meet them anyway, because you just never know.
So you're married now almost 2 years, right?
A year and 8 months now, yes.
So what has been your most important lesson thus far? You don't have to answer.
My husband is smiling at me. I think, ya Allah. So my advice to young ladies is to not want to be this perfect wife, and especially in the beginning. So oftentimes women at the beginning, they just want to be this perfect Miss Wife. I'm a new wifey, I want to be all this, So they want to cook and clean and do all the things, and then eventually they can't keep up with that, So for me, it was from the beginning already. I was like, I'm not going to be a perfect missus, and I'm never going to be. So I was just very much myself from day one. And so because of that, there was never an expectation of, oh, you used to do that and now you're not doing that anymore. So I think that's an important lesson that I'd love to share. It doesn't make me a bad wife at all. It just makes me human. And I think, I hope my husband appreciates that. Important lessons that I've learned was we're very honest also with each other about absolutely everything. So he'll be honest with me about how the food is, regardless how that's going to make me feel, and I'm honest with him about other things. Honesty is, yes, I think, I don't know why people, maybe couples aren't honest with each other about certain things, or want to hide things, or just want to cover up things. Like, I don't believe in that. I think we just, even if it's going to hurt feelings, we're honest with each other. What have I learned? Gosh. To be patient, I'm sure, I guess. I think I've been more of a test to my husband than what he's been for me, in all honesty. So he's been super patient with me and super understanding, and so I came from a household where my mom was like, wanting to be that perfect wife and subservient, and never complained, never said anything wrong ever about the husband or anything like that. And then, so that's why I think I kind of initially, still, I think I went to the other extreme where I was like, I'm not going to do that, So and then it's now for me understanding that, what, my husband is somebody that I don't have to do all of those things for, and he doesn't expect that of me. So it's okay for me to be, super nice and kind and do good things and kind of go the extra mile and things like that.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to go back to this online Quran teaching that you do. So how does someone get in touch with you?
So most of my students come across my profile on Instagram, and then they'll message me, and then I'll send them the information, and if they are interested and able, then we set up an appointment or a meeting.
Is there like a set curriculum, or
so all my teaching is online, one-on-one.
Okay.
I don't believe in group classes for Quran memorization or tajweed or anything like that, simply because everybody's on their own level. And everyone needs individual attention, specifically when it comes to makharij and sifat, which is the pronunciation of the letters and so forth. So I don't feel like I'd give due attention if it was a group class. That it is possible, some people do that, but then obviously if I'm busy with one student, it means the other students would have to wait their turn, basically. So I'd rather just have one-on-one lessons with each student. So there's no set curriculum, it's at their pace. I do, of course, have guidelines for my, the tajweed theory that I first teach before students are able to actually move on to memorization.
Okay, cool. And tell us why did you feel the need to be a hifz life coach and not just a life coach?
So I think that so when I was doing the life coaching course as well, there was one activity where we were just like put in front of a camera and be like, okay, just tell us who you are and what you do. And we were of course encouraged also to select a niche, because can't claim to be able to coach all aspects of life. So I think what came from me in that moment spontaneously was the hifz coaching. So that, and they say that your first reaction usually is the right answer. So I think that's what it was for me. And also just because I don't feel like there is enough support around hifz in terms of emotional support, or what people actually go through. There's a lot of books on the guidelines of how to memorize the Quran, but you're not going to find a book really on the emotions that you go through and the downs that you go through, and just feeling guilty because you don't know your back work, things like that.
I see. Okay.
So you lived in Malawi and then you lived in South Africa. Now you're staying in Egypt.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that experience when staying in
So
Cairo.
when my husband told me, well, at the time in the email that he is in Cairo, and of course I knew from day one that, like, you know, I'd have to move there. And the options really were we'd either stay there for a year or we'd have to stay there for 5 years. So it was like the whole 9 yards. There's no in between because my husband will be starting at the university, and I mean, you can't it's pointless coming home with like half a degree. So when I went there, alhamdulillah, I was happy there. I'm still happy there, alhamdulillah. So we are going to be staying another 4 years. It's very different. It's not for everyone. I always say Cairo is not for everyone. It's a very hustle and bustle city. It's quite dirty. It's very polluted. You'll hear all the bad stuff about it. Everyone will say that. It's extremely hot. However, access to knowledge is really easy and really affordable. So it's really about what you're there for. You renew your intention of why you're there, and you really get what you go there for. Yeah.
Tell us, do you have any mentors?
So I did. So Khalil Alec is looking away over here, but yes, he was mine at one point in time. And I had a life coach that I was with in 2017, the year that I got married. At the end, just after that. I don't have a personal like one-on-one mentor at the moment, but there are definitely people that I look to. For example, Hafila Bauer, looking at just her as a person. I feel like having been in her class really was like a mentorship in a sense. And then of course Manfada Solomon, who has her Qamar Institute. So just maybe they don't one-on-one mentor me, but just the example and the kind of what they're doing, and of course other amazing inspirational women that I find online, that are doing their work, that I aspire to do. I see it as mentors.
Okay.
So we're going to do something fun, but also fast. It's called the lightning round. Okay. So Amiri, cover it.
Yeah. So how this works is I start you off with like 2 words, and then you say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Okay. So Allah is.
Love.
Love is.
Allah.
The world needs.
Healing.
Happiness is.
Contentment.
Success is.
Contentment with Allah's decree.
Being a Muslim to you means.
Everything.
Leadership is.
Being a role model.
Being a role model is.
Ya Allah. I think being a means of guidance.
Okay, cool. When ordering a pizza, do you or do you not have it with pineapple?
With pineapple.
Thank you. Interview paused. Great success.
Are we done?
No. So go almost.
Okay, cool.
It's a couple question. So everybody has a purpose in life. What do you think? Besides obviously the macro purpose that all Muslims have, do they have sort of a purpose?
Oh, sure. So I think Allah SWT set out a vision for all of us in the Quran, and that is that a day will come where neither wealth nor children will benefit except one who returns to Allah with a sound heart. So I believe that the vision is to strive to return to Allah with a sound heart. And then Allah also says in the Quran that, and I've not created jinn and mankind except to worship me. So that's like your overarching vision and mission statement, like right there, to worship him, right? And then obviously that worship will take various forms because we all have our own skills, talents, and abilities. So I believe that it's our responsibility to find out what are our own particular individual skills, talents, and abilities, and how can we use them to fulfill our purpose on this earth, and in order to fulfill our ultimate purpose of worshipping him.
I think one of the things that we probably underplayed throughout this interview is discipline. How are you able to stay so disciplined and focused?
well, I'd be lying to say if I, I'd be lying if I said I am the most super self-disciplined person in the world. I struggle, and I think that we all do. I think that Allah has placed certain mechanisms or tools or structures in our life. For example, like salah, at every, they need to be done in a certain time frame, for example. So like, just in that is a tool for self-discipline. So how am I able to stay disciplined? I think that it's a constant struggle, and it really is just renewal of intention and striving as hard as you can.
And what are you most grateful for in life?
I'm most grateful for my husband. Alhamdulillah.
Not to this is
Okay.
No.
He wasn't there.
No. I think I have to be grateful for my parents as well, because alhamdulillah they've let me do whatever it is that I wanted to do in my life. And at one point I was angry because I was like, well, I felt like they didn't actually kind of guide me to the point that I am now. Like, I feel like I was this accidental Muslim that kind of, alhamdulillah, Allah sent me that guidance. However, if they hadn't let me do whatever I wanted to do, I probably wouldn't have gone there, because I have friends and I know people who their parents actually stopped them from doing Islamic studies. So alhamdulillah they let me do that, and through that was just, I just blossomed as a person, and my life flourished from them. So I have to be grateful to them for what they've provided me for, and the people that they are, and who they molded me into through them letting me be who I am. And of course, especially to my mother for her guidance and her love.
So I saw this workshop that you're doing. Tell us about this workshop.
So I'm presenting a workshop on Saturday called The Journey, because we're all on a journey, and it's about owning your journey. Because I think for a long time I kind of kept looking at what is beyond. Like, I was like, I have such a long time to get there. So like, I'm doing a degree as well, a psychology degree through the South African College of Applied Psychology. So because I'm doing it part-time, it is taking quite a while, and I have not yet finished. So there's that, and then I aspire to do all of the qira'at. So I'm just like on like the second edition now, Art of Life, so it's like that's now another long stretch to get there. And then it's like, my Islamic studies, I also like always felt like this long stretch to get there. And then alhamdulillah, it was through the life coaching course that I did last year, where I just kind of stopped looking at the future of where I'm going, but rather just owning where I'm at now, and who I am now firstly, and where I'm at, and that and just being happy with where I'm at. And I hope to inspire other people to also realize that where they're at is where Allah's placed them in their life right now, and to own that journey, and of course look to the future and aspire for more.
So what's the gender like for Saturday? How do people still register?
So the Journey workshop is named that based on a goal-setting journal called The Journey, and this goal-setting journal has space for your vision, your mission, your values, even things, leisure activities, and it's got habit tracker in there as well. At the moment, all the seats with the journals are now have been taken. So if anyone wants to still join, they're more than welcome to. So they can either just come and not get the journal, or they can order the journal. Will only be come next month. So it's an Egyptian lady that authored the journal. I have met and done one of her workshops in Egypt. So the agenda also will include things like self-esteem and self-worth, and also how us as Muslims, how our worth is inherent, whereas in the world we live in today, our worth is always attached to our achievements, whether it be academic or financial, or anything else. And it's ingrained in us that you are only worthy if you own a house, or drive a car, or live a certain lifestyle. And it's subconscious. People don't even realize that, So I hope to share that our worth as Muslims is inherently because we are Muslim and Allah created us, and we don't need any of those things to prove our worth to ourselves or to anyone else.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So people can still register, but they won't get journal. Right?
Yes, that's right. So you're more than welcome to DM me on Instagram, and if you'd like to come.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Shukran so much. It's wonderful to see you grow from where you were. Alhamdulillah, and you also adding value now to other people's lives. And Allah bless you and your family, and yeah, all the best.
I mean, I just cannot do. We have time for one short little thing as well.
Sure.
So, last weekend, I was invited to go to Port Elizabeth, and I shared my workshops over there. So on the Friday night, I did Inspiration, which is for people, to inspire people to memorize the Quran. So in that part of South Africa, it's not like Cape Town where it's norm for females to memorize. They're kind of still getting there. And then on the Saturday, I did the journey workshop, and I shared that when I came to you, Khalil, a few years ago, and you asked me, what is it that you'd like to do? And I said, I'd like to be a motivational speaker. And I said, I'm standing here today as a motivational speaker, and this is what I'd said to you a few years back. And this is, this is really the manifestation of it, and this is living proof of how important it is to have a vision and a mission. It was an amazing experience because it was my first time being flown to another city and being accommodated, and and I got my itinerary on what I was like, told my husband, like, oh my god, like I have an itinerary. It was just the most exciting thing ever. And I, Khalil doesn't even remember me, doesn't remember that he mentored me, but that really is the impact of having a mentor and having a vision for yourself.
So let's say today's your last day. On a very depressing note, today's your last day, and you only have like 30 seconds to give us your best advice. Tell us.
My best advice would really be to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to ask His forgiveness for whatever has gone by, and to make the intention to live, to dedicate yourself to Allah. Not all of us had parents who dedicated us to the service of Him, but that doesn't mean we can't dedicate ourselves to His service.
Shukran.
Alaikum
Yeah.
salam wa rahmatullah.
And shukran to all our listeners and viewers as well.
We're all done.
Mm-hmm.